And good morning. I hope you're having a wonderful day so far. I am Ann Kiguta. Welcome to Citizen Extra. We're taking you across the country where news is breaking. We'll have live updates for you on stories as they develop. This hour, though, we focus on the issue of road safety and the back, of course, of the dozens who have died over the last few days, particularly in Eldoret. And our reporter, John Wanyama, is standing by for us this morning with live updates on the same. And in studio, we also have guests who will help us dissect this issue, including one who is David Carrier. He's the chair of the Road Safety Association. I'll be speaking to him very shortly, alongside Nakia White, who's a crisis communications expert. So that and more coming up throughout Citizen Extra. You don't want to miss all our great topics this morning. But first, let's take you straight to Eldoret now, where John Wanyama is standing by with an update. John, good morning. We've seen the tragic loss of life, many say quite needlessly, on the roads. What can you tell us?
A very good morning back to you there, Studio Ann. And here in Eldoret town, as you said, these accidents have been seen. The recent days we have seen that they have gone up every day, at least. Even if it's not in Salga or Sajangwan, even in Eldoret town itself, you will find that there's minor or small accidents happening each and every day. And specifically this season here, people are asking themselves questions, what is not happening, especially when it reaches December month. Most people always die on our roads. So I'm at North Rift Circle, where we would like to talk to the managers to tell us and what are they doing, what have they put in place, the measures they are put in place to ensure that their passengers who are traveling from Eldoret to Nakuru, Nairobi, what are they doing to ensure they arrive safe and sound. If I can talk to you, sir, come close to me. Ni nini hasa mmefanya kuhakikisha kwamba wasafiri ambao wanaenda Nairobi, Nakuru wanafika salama salimini?
Kwa hii kampuni yetu, kitu yenye tumeweka sana ni mambo ya tracking system ya magari. Kwa side ya kuangalia magari, tuko na speed governors, tuko na madereva wenye wako wamecomply. Magari yetu, vitu ya kwanza tunaangalia kama siko na matairi mzuri. Sana mambo ya speed, tuko na magari ya highway patrol. Kwa sana sina monitor hizo magari. Sinaangalia sikiflow kwa barabara kuanzia Bungoma, Kimilili, Huye mpaka Nairobi town.
And we've seen also pengine mko na patrol car inafanya nini, na kama hiyo tracking system inawaonyesha magari ambayo yana speed kwa barabara?
Hiyo gari ya highway patrol tumeweka kwa barabara, tumefit system zao kama za kuangalia magari. Tuko na system ya fleet system kwa hiyo gari. Wakati hiyo gari iko kwa barabara, huwa sinaangalia gari kutoka Nairobi, hata sikisimama mahali kama Cheptiret, huwa inaangalia all the way kutoka Bungoma mpaka Nairobi.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. And maybe are you also checking on the numbers you are carrying in your cars? Kuna wasafiri wangapi, na kama kuna emergency line ambayo mmeiweka wateja wanaweza piga iwapo dereva ana.
Sasa highway patrol tuko na customer care mobile unit yenye mtu mimi mwenyewe sasa ndio naangalia hizo magari vile zinakaa, kama kuna shida yote, kama kuna customer ako kwa hiyo gari, kama kuna shida yako naye anapika hiyo namba, sisi wenyewe tunamshughulikia. Na kama kuna tuseme breakdown ya gari kwa barabara, tuko na magari zenye saa zingine siko standby, inatusaidia pika simu kwa ofisi, gari inakuja inabeba hiyo watu. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Are you allowing your drivers also to rest enough? Because tunajua msimu huu nyinyi amruhusu madereva wenu kupumzika, wanafanya kazi 24/7.
Tuko na dereva akichoka, tumeme ameenda Nairobi amerudi, ako na time ya kupumzika, amuke kesho asubuhi akienda kazi yake. Sio lazima aende kazi throughout. Yeah.
Thank you very much, sir, for talking to Citizen Extra. And let me talk to also a passenger here who is traveling to Nairobi, but the thing is that she is afraid. She has some fear. She don't know whether she will arrive safely to Nairobi, and she's going for graduation. What is your name and what are your fear?
My name is Tarikinyor Marilyn. My fears are that the road accidents have increased, especially during this season, and it's bringing a lot of fear to us, the passengers. Mostly as we are traveling to Nairobi, because accidents have always occurred along Nairobi Eldoret Road. So it's my prayer that God can grant us safe journey. We go for our graduation and come back. And also the government and maybe the NTSA, if there's something they can do so that they can reduce these road accidents, it will be better so that the Kenyans will stop dying in road accidents. Yeah.
Which car are you going to use to travel to Nairobi? We are seeing several here private, this North Rift Sacco, others are using lorries. Which one are you going to use?
I think that's the most difficult question because it's hard to choose. You're like, which one is the best, which one is safe? Right now I've still not decided on which car to use, but before the end of the day I'll have to travel. Yeah, safety is all we need. Yes.
Thank you very much. We wish you success and safe journey as you go to graduate. And the issue that she's really putting up here is that choosing which car to travel with here in this where I'm standing now is a bit a problem, because here we have North Rift. These are PSV vehicles licensed, but behind me, just a few behind these lorries, you will realize that there are private people. Just a person once decides to go to Nairobi, but because he wants some fuel, he comes here, stops and maybe picks some 3 or 4 passengers, puts in his car and travel or transports them to Nairobi, something that is very risky because you remember he's not licensed as a PSV vehicle. Also here in Eldoret town, especially Moi Teaching and Referral Hospital, and something of interest also is that the hospital has put aside 2 wards special for accidents, especially border riders. It's meant for them because each and every day the hospital receives more than 10 people who have been involved in accident, especially for motor riders in this region. So it's really a worrying trend, especially this Christmas festival month when people are trying and planning to go more for graduation. Others are going maybe to their rural village to celebrate what they have been through the whole year. And
thanks, John, for that update. You know, just listening to what he said, it's frightening. There is someone who wants to come to the capital for her graduation ceremony, and she doesn't know which vehicle to use. And I mean, how can you even expect a road user to look at, you know, a vehicle and, you know, just say, this is, you know, this is the safe way? So and of course also the issue of the wards, setting aside 2 wards just to deal with these accidents. It's real madness. Nakia, what's going wrong?
I think NTSA has to do a better job of protecting its citizens and doing a better job with the roads. And certainly, I think many of the problems that we saw this weekend, where a number of people have lost their lives, unfortunately, right before the holidays, is that the cars need to be checked. Lorries need to be checked. When Moi was president, you know, lorries weren't able to be on the road between 6 p.m. and 6 a.m. And I'm not sure if that particular law is still being enforced in a manner that it should be. But sometimes lorries drive, I drive on the road all the time, and sometimes the lorries drive recklessly. So I think the NTSA needs to get on their job and certainly do a better job at protecting its citizens, and perhaps you know, pushing for or trying to lobby for legislation that will repair the roads and put a better silence to protect people.
Yeah, David, is this purely a human error issue?
Let me say it is pure human error issue, because like all the accidents we have experienced during that weekend, you realize that there were accidents which would have been avoided, but just because of not putting things the way they are supposed to, then we lose lives. And let me say, since the formation of NTSA, you realize this year, we've been every year, since the formation, we've been coming together with NTSA from the month of October, and we usually do so many crackdowns. But this year, we were not able to do because of politics. And when there are no those crackdowns on our roads, we normally experience more carnage on our roads. Yeah.
All right, and is that because of the roadworthiness of these vehicles, or are you saying that there are people who shouldn't be behind the wheel?
Let me say, even nowadays, we cannot say that the roadworth of the vehicle or the roadworth of the vehicle, that they are not roadworthy. No, because what we have experienced is that the newer vehicles cause more accidents because of overspeeding and people not following traffic rules. Like, for instance, we have speed governors which were introduced in this country, but most of these people remove these speed governors. Like most of the cases we have seen now, most of these accidents, you just go, you find that the speed governor has been removed. So these people remove them intentionally because they want to do many trips, maybe they want to do overspeeds. But if the traffic rules is followed to the letter, these accidents will be a thing of the past. And also, we have another challenge and a bigger challenge. Like now, if I ask you, who is the minister, who is the CS of transport in this country, who is the PS of transport in this country, he's not known. We need, and we are appealing to our president, this position, like for transport, should be somebody who is working like Michoki. For instance, if we have this gentleman in education, you call him Matiang'i. If Matiang'i comes in that docket, I am telling you, these things will go. So the leadership. Now we have NTSA, which has no head. The CSE is nowhere. This accident have happened. He has not even said anything. So if you look, from the time Michoki came, when he was the Minister of Transport, he transformed so many things. Even when Kamau and Dupa Muli were there as a PS, we could see many changes. But nowadays, nothing. Nothing is happening.
So you think there's a leadership issue as well?
There is leadership elements there.
Okay. Nakia, do you agree?
I think I agree to some extent. I'm not sure, I don't know where the statistics are, because my statistics were a little bit different than yours in terms of, you know, cars and lorries having accidents being newer cars. I just think it is, especially from the information that I've read recently, is that people aren't following the rules, and that's one part. And then the second part is that, you know, cops on the road have different priorities than checking cars for safety and whether the brakes are functioning. Correct. I didn't want to say corruption, but yes. Corruption is certainly, I think, at the root of you know, cars being checked for safety and for drivability on the roads. So I do agree with my colleague to some extent, but I'm not sure if human error in terms of, you know, accidents happening is completely it is partly cars and lorries not being in the safest conditions to be on the roads.
Right. Why does this happen, especially over the holidays? And you know, we are in African culture, and it does come with a great deal of superstition. People fears there's some heebie-jeebies going on the roads at this sort of time of year, just because we seem to see these accidents take an increase from around the August period and then the December period. Why do you think that is?
Let me say these holiday moods contribute a lot to these accidents, because with years you have seen that every month of December we have an increased number of deaths and accidents in our country. That means, like now you see, because you realize from October, as I had said, there have not been any operation on our roads. And one thing we should agree, in Africa, the whole of Africa, there is that tendency of not following the traffic rules. And the traffic rules in Kenya is not taken serious, because you see, like just the other day, a driver is drunk, he kills a policeman, and then he comes out, he says, why are you, I'm not going anywhere. But that driver today, where is he? He's out. So if somebody kills using a motor vehicle, it's not murder. It's something, it's taken lightly. So we should take these things with at least some measures, and strict measures. That, for instance, for you to drive a vehicle when you are drunk, you know very well that when you are caught, it is a serious offense. It should be a serious offense, because you will cause death to somebody and even to yourself. So what is here is that we Kenyans, and we say all of us, we are not trying to take these traffic rules seriously. And traffic rules, even the passenger should know, and I think there should be civic education, whereby they should know when a vehicle is not driven properly. And there should be hotline numbers, in particular to NTSA. When somebody sees something is happening, he calls immediately to the NTSA, so that we can avoid, instead of coming here, or every time there is an accident, when people have already died. So we must do something.
So the Grim Reaper hasn't been unleashed over us in August, fine. But you know, it's interesting when you talk about the penalty, and I do hear you in terms of it being, you know, treated as, you know, like murder one, if you like. Sure. But do we have evidence, Nakia, that stiffer penalties equals better compliance?
Sure. I mean, listen, even before you talk about compliance, I think if you have police and military that are on the road and that are checking the cars.
Military?
Well, military. Sometimes, I mean, at the borders, they're military checking cars, right? So, you know, if you have these two law enforcement bodies on the road checking cars, I think, and doing it seriously and really taking into account the safety of the vehicle, the state of the person that's driving the car, and then possibly towing the car or removing their license and not letting them drive again, marking, and perhaps updating the whole driving system and making it much more electronic, as it is in the United States and many other parts of the world, where you can literally scan a license plate and you can tell whether or not that driver is a legal driver in the country or in that particular city, what kind of violations that they have. And then, yes, enforcement in terms of, you know, if they're driving drunk, they go to jail. If they're driving drunk and they kill someone, then they get life. You know, but having these mandatory penalties where there's vehicular manslaughter or whatever it is, but making sure that there are penalties and penalties that are enforced and not just a slap on the wrist, where they can set a bell and get out immediately.
I want to talk about the role of law enforcement a little more, and you alluded to the fact that, Nakia, that they are on the roads to do something other than their job. And it has been a challenge in terms of bribery on the roads. In your own interaction with the law enforcement, David, as the chair of the Road Safety Association, do you find that the creation and introduction of NTSA has helped refocus, if you like, law enforcers on the roads to actually do that job? You know, there is now a certain degree of accountability that is required, especially of this body.
Let me say, since the formation of NTSA, let me say for sure they have done a lot. But we normally don't see what they have done. We only criticize them when an accident occurs.
What do you think they've done?
But if you compare the other years, and since they took over, we have been reducing. Like, for instance, this year we had reduced the number. Now it is again increasing. But if you count from even from last year to this time, they have really done good work. But it is not yet where we want.
But I think the reduction was something like 4%.
Yeah, 4%. And let me say, like, for instance, you know, we've been having more deaths on pedestrians. Now you can see there is that reduction. And what is now increasing is this boda boda. And the boda boda now is the highest killing our people in this country. While we know very well that boda bodas we cannot remove them because these people get their money through that business. But there must be measures taken. And for sure, we know very well that, and it's something we have done as Road Safety Association, we can tell you for sure, most riders don't even have a license. That is a very simple thing. Just making sure that
it's not regulated.
Not regulated. So it must be properly regulated. Let us know which speeds are they supposed to do on our roads. But if they are not properly regulated, this is why you see anybody who drops out of school, just give him a boda boda. And where are these schools training these boda bodas? We don't have any school. They are just trained to go around. If he does twice in an estate, then he becomes a professional driver or a rider. So that is risk, and we are risking the lives of Kenyans.
Okay. I want us to listen into Francis Major. He's, of course, the Director General of the National Transport and Safety Authority. This is what he had to say about the carnage that we've seen on our roads this past weekend. All right, we seem to be having a challenge with that clip. We'll bring it back to you soon as we can. You know, 2 years ago, I believe it was about 2 years ago, where we saw the carnage on our roads basically being described as a national disaster. There were huge campaigns going on. I believe Safaricom really taking the lead in that. Do you believe that we are at national disaster levels? Is what we're seeing in Kenya quite unlike what we see in other African countries?
I believe it is a national disaster because nothing is killing more people than our roads. Even the diseases we talk about, not AIDS, not anything, we lose so many people on our roads. And we can just call it a disaster. And if all the corporates can join and work towards campaigning towards road safety in our country, it will really help. But one thing we should understand is this, that in Kenya we have about 96 black spots in Kenya. Black spots which even if you go on the road, they have written clearly black spot. How do we agree as Kenyans that we have a black spot? We should know why is it called, and we label it a black spot. What is the reason of it being called a black spot?
That's a very interesting point. Can we return to it just a little later when we talk about the state of our highways? But Nakia, because you are a communications specialist, does the title we give what we are going through then, you know, determine how it will be addressed from a policy and enforcement level?
I think, you know, to his point, when you do have roads labeled black spot, I think in some ways, you know, it helps a driver to be aware and to be much more cautious of the area that you go through. And sometimes there are blind spots and black spots and, you know, and steep curves. And it's certainly just kind of the typographic way that the road is made, unfortunately. So it really is a sign for a person or a driver to be much more careful of the road that they're on. But in terms of communication, I think, you know, it is important for NTSA to, of course, get ahead of this and not point fingers and not, you know, negate blame or push blame to anyone else. They have to kind of say, hey, we acknowledge that there are some deaths on this road, 70 or more. And that there possibly might be more, and here are what we will be working on in the next 6 months to improve road conditions, to improve safety.
Calling it a national disaster, would that change approach?
I think
new measures?
I'm not sure if it would change approach. I mean, you know, if one death is too many, especially right before the holidays. So, you know, acknowledging the death, whether you call it a national tragedy or not, acknowledging it and making sure that you kind of, you know, come out ahead of anything else and say, here's what we're working on, here's what we're going to do. One death is too many, 70 is way too many for any family or any country to lose in a weekend. And here's what we're working on. But so calling it a national tragedy, and you can call it that, but if you do not have a plan in place to improve, you know, deaths and improve lives not being lost, then calling it a national tragedy or a small accident, none of that is inconsequential, in my opinion.
The plan is what matters. So to return to your earlier point, are our highways safe? Why are we comfortable, you know, with just labeling these spots black spots or blind spots or whatever the label may be, instead of actually working on that spot, building around it, re-engineering, redesigning our roads?
In fact, let me tell you, out of the 96 black spots we have in this country, it is a matter of the road design. And if the design was not done in a proper way, and many people have died, why do we wait? Or what number are we going to lose so that we change these designs? Like, for instance, we've been talking of Chachangwani. This is the time now the government is telling us that they want to do a dual carriage there. This thing should have been done earlier, not wait till more people die, because these black spots, we have an experience of them, that people die there. We come, we talk about but the solution, we have not solved that problem. And to solve that problem is to think of that design of that road. It will not cost much money to change that design where we are calling a black spot. And
or it might, but I mean, surely the cost of life should be more.
Is more, right. Is more. And even now, I'm appealing to the government. First of all, don't do any other road. They have done so many roads. First of all, let us deal with our black spots. Make sure that the designs are changed to make sure that our people are safe, instead of continuing losing people. And when people die, that is the time we come up, we talk a lot about the black spots, and nothing is done. Something must be done.
Okay.
And when I talk of something to be done, when I say something to be done, I'm not talking of Chachangwani. We have 96 black spots in this country. Can they work on those black spots? Not only that place, because now we've been promised. We've been promised that they'll do our dual carriage. And it's not only the spot. The 96 spots, the black spots we have, can they be properly checked?
Yeah, Patrick Gathara, who is he's a journalist and writes on a lot of issues, has argued in one of his articles that we're not building roads for people to use. Instead, we're putting rules and forcing people to conform to rules, as opposed to just building safe roads. We already know people are prone to breaking the law. We already know that officers are prone to corruption. So why don't we build in roads, if you like, that almost dummy proof, if you like? And he quotes, examples from Europe, and talking about how the Swedes and others have been able to, really reduce the toll on the roads. Do you think that there is something to that besides just, legislating a lot and ensuring on enforcement, that we just need to know, look, people will possibly drink drive, people will ignore speed limits, etc., and other rules, and so we need to build a system that factors in the way in which human beings are prone to doing these things.
Well, I can say, in places like Sweden, Europe, and Denmark, they've built in pedestrian roads and have a culture that walks to work or rides their bike to work. But the other thing that's really interesting about the countries that you mentioned is that they have really strong enforcement. So there's zero tolerance. If you are in a motor vehicle accident and you kill someone, you go to jail, more than likely for life. So there are differences. So yes, there's policy in place, there's law enforcement in place, and then there's also the construction of the roads where they consider that people will both walk to work as well as bike to work and drive to work, and they make sure that those safety measures are in place and those enforcement laws are in place to keep people safe. And that's why they're doing well. And they're starting to do that as well in the United States, where pedestrian roads are there. We have cameras on our light, speed cameras, and if you speed past a particular light or you run a light, you get a ticket automatically in the mail. Third ticket, you lose your license. And it really depends on which state you're in. But again, that's, I mentioned this earlier about updating the system and making it much more electronic and digital based, I think will make differences. And when people see, listen, our car can be towed, we can lose our license, we can go to jail, I think that you'll see a big difference in the way that people act on the road. And then also, creating roads that protect people and creating roads that provide for, safe walkways, which is not on Waiyaki Way, which is not on the Uhuru Highway, which is not on any of the major roads. You see people literally crossing in the middle of the roads and hopping, the road divide. Right. And that is incredibly dangerous. But, pedestrians have no other choice but to kind of take these shortcuts through the road to get to where they need to go work or wherever. And so really thinking about the whole ecosystem of not only, just cars, but motorcycles and buses and pedestrians, and then enforcing those laws once you have that infrastructure in place.
Are we also we're not thinking, critically enough in terms of public transport and the options that the public has, to commute? Would that be a problem as well, David?
Yeah, it is a big problem. And as she was trying to say, if I continue with that, in Africa, because now we have been labeled to be the whole Africa, that we have more deaths, we have more road carnage on our roads than in Europe. And in fact, if you compare our vehicles in Africa, they are less than the ones which are in Europe. But what did they do? Like you've been talking of Sweden. What did Sweden do? Remember, they used to experience more than 4,000 deaths a year in Sweden. But they came up, all bodies came up. And they came up with a zero, it was called zero, something to make sure that they reduce their debts to the minimal. And the first thing was the road policy, to make sure that they separate motor vehicles and motorcycles and pedestrians. That is the first. Whereby in Kenya, we are still doing more roads, but we are not thinking of safety of those people we are building those roads for. Because we must separate the vehicles, the motor vehicles, the motorcycles, and the pedestrians. Any road, that is for safety. And if we separate that, then you realize that we are going to reduce a big number. And that, for us to be able to do that, we have to join hands. NTSA, there is KENHA, who deals with the road. Like now when we talk of Chechangwani, and I hear people talking of NTSA, NTSA has nothing to do with that. That is the work of KENHA. And surprisingly,
the National Highways
Authority.
Yes,
the national. And the other day, their director, who has been quiet since he came in the office, but he talked about Chechangwani, and he's the one who said now they are going to put a dual carriage. So what we are saying is this: when we are talking of road safety, let us think of everything, not always talking of drivers and other things, but we should also think about our roads. How are we doing our roads? Are they going to save our people, or are we just building roads, people just to go through killing themselves? Yeah.
So what you were referring to was called Vision Zero.
Vision Zero, Sweden.
Yeah, and it was instituted in 1997.
Exactly.
So for the last 20 years, and they really enforced it, and I mean have reduced deaths.
And you remember last year they had roughly from 4,000, they had lost about 625 people last year. Just the measures they took, the same measures we can take. We need the government to be here. We need NTSA to be here. We need KENHA to be here. We need everybody to be here.
But I suppose also the political responsibility and the leadership issue that you talked about earlier,
sure.
that, you know, you get this number of deaths in such a short period of time. In some countries, that should require a resignation from
immediately,
from the respective heads.
Yes.
So I hear you on that. We've talked about the enforcement. Let's talk about what your association is doing, the Road Safety Association. David?
Yeah, sure.
What are you doing? And first of all, why didn't you have that campaign?
Let me say, we've been having this campaign every year. And I think it is only this time, and this is where you see these things happening, because we were a bit, the campaigns, the politics which was in this country was a bit hostile even to our work. There are places we could not have gone. But every year, we normally join with NTSA, police, and we are always on the roads. But this year, and we normally start in October, meaning that drivers always are aware that we are on the road, and everybody goes try to make sure that he's following the traffic rules. But this year, because of the politics which was there, it was not good politics, and I wish we will not be having this politics after every 5 years when we could not have worked. And I'm telling you, we have not been on the road from October, because this politics was a bit very nini. But if we go, and this is my appeal to NTSA, should make sure that their marshals are on the road, because no matter what you do, no matter what you say, unless they are on the road, these accidents will still be there. Like last year, we went on the road with the NTSA officers, and we were able to arrest 13 drivers who were drunk and they were carrying passengers. You can imagine. And private vehicles ferrying passengers at this time, and we were able to arrest so many of them. So now it is NTSA to organize themselves and to make sure that because we normally, you know, NTSA was formed so that we can work with them, our body and the NTSA and other bodies. We work together with even KEBS. We work together. But us alone, because we don't have marshals, we cannot be on the road. Now we normally use NTSA. We give our people. We get even these people, the inspectors from inspection places. We go on the road, and if we organize those crackdowns, I'm 100% sure that we are going to reduce the number, because for sure we had reduced this number. It was 4%, which would have gone a bit higher if we could have reduced in this month of December, because the month of December is when we have always, in every year, we have a higher number of accidents in this country.
All right, I think we'll be able to take in now that commentary from Francis Major, who's the Director General of the National Transport and Safety Authority. Listen, then we'll go.
We want to assure the public that we are doing all that we can, working with our other partners, the National Police and all other government agencies, to try and make sure that our roads are safe. However, we want to appeal to all drivers. It is not possible to police each and every vehicle on a highway. So the tendency that you only behave when you see law enforcers is not the route to take. And therefore, responsibility for each and every driver at this particular moment is absolutely important.
I mean, what can we do in terms of our culture? Because there's also a cultural issue here. Just the fact that we, as we said earlier, don't like rules. We don't like rules. And we have evidence that even if you break the rules, nothing happens.
Nothing happens to you.
So what can we do about that?
I think this should be dealt with even in our parliament, because we still have a challenge there, because the rules which were there, they need some corrections, and many for sure. Because, for instance, you realize that if somebody is caught drinking in this country, it is not a crime. It's not something. It's nothing. He just pays a little fine and he gets out. So the same person, you'll find him tomorrow drinking and driving. But in Europe, you are caught once drinking, you will never drink again and drive. So we should make sure that we have these rules followed. And for the rules to be followed, the enforcement must be there. And for this enforcement, and what we are saying is that we have to join hands, all of us, and support if it is NTSA. We have to support them. And when we support them, we want to see them working. We don't want to hear excuses from NTSA. We want to see them working. They must be on the road, because we cannot continue like this. We cannot keep on losing people like this. And when we lose people, that is the time we are talking so much. No, we must. NTSA must make sure that they are on the road and they save Kenyans' lives, because that is, they have been given that job to do.
All right. You agree?
I agree.
Here we are. Top of the hour. We're taking a short break. We're back with more on Citizen Extra. Stay with us.